The clock on my phone read 12:47 a.m. when I sent the third text to my wife Sarah. No response. Again. Hey babe, just checking in, how's girls' night? Getting late. You okay? Sarah, please just let me know you're safe. 3 blue check marks. Read. Ignored. I'm Eddie Harlow, 41 years old, and I've been married to Sarah for 8 years. I work as a building inspector in our small Maine town of Millbrook, population 8,200. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where secrets travel faster than gossip, and where a man's reputation can crumble in a single weekend. Sarah had left at 7 p.m., dressed to kill in a black dress I'd never seen before. Just going out with the girls, she'd said, barely looking at me as she grabbed her purse. Don't wait up. But here I was at nearly 1 a.m., waiting up, staring at my phone like it held the answers to questions I didn't want to ask. The house felt different without her. Our modest 2-bedroom place on Maple Street suddenly seemed too quiet, too empty. The half-finished kitchen renovation I'd been working on for months mocked me from across the room. Cabinets hung at odd angles, tools scattered across the counter, just like everything else in my life lately. Unfinished, messy, falling apart. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. You've reached Sarah. Leave a message and I'll get back to you. Her cheerful recorded voice felt like a slap in the face. That's when I decided to call her friends. First, I tried Jessica, her closest friend from the hospital where Sarah worked as a project manager. Jessica answered on the 4th ring, her voice thick with sleep. Eddie? What time is it? Sorry to wake you, Jess. I'm looking for Sarah. She went out with you girls tonight, right? A pause. Too long of a pause. Oh, yeah. We were at Murphy's pub earlier. But I left around 10. Had to get home to the kids. Was Sarah still there when you left? Another pause. I think so? It was pretty crowded. Look, Eddie, I'm really tired. Can we talk tomorrow? She hung up before I could ask anything else. Next, I called Amanda, another friend from Sarah's work. Same story. Left early. Thought Sarah was still there. Couldn't be sure. Then I called Rachel, Sarah's college friend who lived across town. This time, the pause was even longer. Rachel, did you see Sarah tonight? Eddie, Look, I wasn't feeling well. I didn't even go out tonight. My blood turned to ice water. What do you mean you didn't go out? Sarah said she was meeting you and the girls. I've been home all night with a migraine. I texted the group earlier to cancel. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto the coffee table. If Rachel canceled and Jessica left early and Amanda left early, who was Sarah with? I grabbed my laptop and opened Instagram. Sarah's profile loaded, and there it was, a post from 2 hours ago. The photo showed a dimly lit club interior, neon lights casting purple and blue shadows across a crowded dance floor. In the foreground, 2 drinks sat on a high-top table. One had lipstick marks on the rim, Sarah's signature red shade. The other was untouched, a man's drink by the look of it. Whiskey, neat. The caption read, "Sometimes you need to dance like nobody's watching #girls night #living my best life." But I could see the edge of a man's hand in the photo, reaching for that whiskey glass. A hand wearing a silver watch I didn't recognize, with a tattoo peeking out from under the sleeve. My phone buzzed. Sarah, finally calling back. What the hell, Eddie? Her voice was sharp, annoyed. Background noise suggested she was still at the club. Jessica said you called her, and Amanda. Are you checking up on me like I'm some kind of teenager? Where are you, Sarah? I'm out, with friends, like I told you. Which friends? Because I called them. Rachel didn't even go out tonight. Jessica and Amanda left hours ago. Silence. The background noise seemed to fade, like she'd stepped outside or into a quieter area. I met up with some other people, from work. You don't know them. What other people? Eddie, stop. Just stop. I'm not a little kid. Stop looking for me and calling all my friends. I'll be home soon. Something in her tone, defensive, guilty, angry, told me everything I needed to know. In 8 years of marriage, I'd learned to read Sarah's moods like weather patterns. This wasn't the voice of someone having innocent fun with coworkers. "Don't come home," I said quietly. "What?" "I know who you left with. I know what you did after the club." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I could hear her breathing, could almost feel her panic through the phone. "Eddie, you're being crazy. I don't know what you think. We should get divorced," I interrupted, "because a wife like you isn't what I want, and it's definitely not what I need." I hung up. For a moment, I just sat there in the dark living room, surrounded by the debris of my half-finished life. The kitchen renovation that would never be completed, the mortgage we'd taken out together, the joint bank account, the shared dreams that had slowly curdled into resentment and lies. My phone buzzed with texts, Sarah trying to call back. I declined each call and watched the messages pile up. "Eddie, please. You're misunderstanding. Come on, don't be like this. I'm coming home, we need to talk." I turned off my phone and walked to the kitchen. In the junk drawer, buried under takeout menus and dead batteries, I found the business card Detective Knox had given me last year when someone had broken into my work truck. I'd never needed it then, but something told me I might need it now. Not for tonight. Tonight was just the beginning. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat back down in my recliner. Outside, Mrs. Patterson's dog was barking at something in the darkness. The sound echoed through our quiet neighborhood, a warning that something was wrong, something was coming. I didn't know it yet, but that phone call had just lit the fuse on 8 years of marriage. And when Sarah walked through that door, everything we'd built together was going to explode. The bourbon burned going down, but not as much as the truth. I woke up in my recliner at 6:23 a.m., neck stiff and mouth tasting like regret and whiskey. Sarah's car wasn't in the driveway. The events of the previous night came flooding back like a bad hangover. The unanswered calls, the lies, the Instagram post with the mystery man's hand reaching for a drink. I made coffee with shaking hands and tried to piece together what I knew. Sarah had lied about her plans. Her friends had all left early or hadn't gone out at all. She'd been with someone she didn't want me to know about. My phone, which I'd turned back on 20 minutes ago, showed 17 missed calls from Sarah and a string of increasingly desperate text messages. "Eddie, please answer. I'm at Jessica's house, we need to talk. This is ridiculous, you're acting crazy. Fine, be that way, but I'm not coming home until you calm down." The last message had come in at 4:17 a.m. She'd spent the night somewhere else. The question was where. I called in sick to work, first time in 3 years, and drove to Murphy's pub. It didn't open until 11, but I knew the owner, Big Jim Murphy, would be there early doing inventory. I found him in the back alley, unloading cases of beer from a delivery truck. "Eddie Harlow," he boomed, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You're up early for a guy who's not working construction anymore." "Hey, Jim, quick question. Were you working last night?" "Sure was. Thursdays are busy. Why?" "My wife Sarah was here with some friends. You remember seeing her?" Jim's expression shifted slightly. In a small town, bartenders are like priests and therapists rolled into one. They see everything, hear everything, and know when to keep their mouths shut. "Yeah, I saw her. Came in around 8 with that blonde friend of hers. Jessica, I think." "Did they stay long?" "Jessica left maybe an hour later. Had to get home to her kids," she said. Jim paused, studying my face. "But Sarah, she stayed." "Alone?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Eddie, maybe you should ask Sarah about this. I'm asking you, Jim." He sighed and leaned against his truck. She wasn't alone when she left. There was a guy, young guy, maybe late 20s, tall, athletic, never seen him before. The words hit me like a physical blow. "What time did they leave?" "Maybe 11:30. They were Close, Eddie. Real close. I'm sorry. I thanked Jim and drove home in a daze. Sarah's car was now in the driveway, and I could see her moving around inside the house through the kitchen window. She was waiting for me when I walked through the door, still wearing the black dress from last night, though it was wrinkled now and her makeup was smeared. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "Where have you been?" I shot back. "I told you I stayed at Jessica's." Bullshit. The word came out harder than I'd intended. "Jim Murphy saw you leave the pub with some guy around 11:30, so either you're lying about Jessica's house or you're lying about being alone." Sarah's face went pale, then flushed red. "You went to the pub? You're checking up on me like I'm some kind of criminal?" "Answer the question, Sarah. Who was he?" "I don't have to answer anything. This is insane, Eddie. You're acting paranoid and controlling and— His name, Sarah. Just give me his name." She turned away from me, staring out the kitchen window. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, but no less defiant. "His name is Austin Reddick. He's a personal trainer at the new gym downtown. We've been talking. Talking. Yes, talking. He's a friend. Friends don't leave bars together at midnight, Sarah." "Nothing happened." The words exploded out of her. "We just went for coffee and talked. He's going through a divorce too, and we have a lot in common and— Divorce? I felt the floor shift under my feet. "What divorce? We're not getting divorced." Sarah's eyes flashed with something I'd never seen before. Contempt, maybe, or relief at finally being caught. "Aren't we, Eddie? Look at us. Look at this house. Look at your life. You're 41 years old and you spend your evenings measuring door frames and checking electrical outlets. You haven't touched me in months. You haven't taken me anywhere or done anything exciting in years. I feel like I'm suffocating." "So, you decided to start dating other men?" "I decided to remember what it feels like to be alive." The silence that followed was deafening. We stood there in our broken kitchen, surrounded by the tools and half-finished projects that had once represented our future together, and I realized that somewhere along the way, we'd become strangers. "How long?" I asked quietly. "How long what?" "How long have you been seeing him?" Sarah looked away again. "A few weeks, maybe a month." "Where did you meet him?" "At the gym. I joined last month, remember? You said it was too expensive, but I joined anyway." I did remember. She'd come home excited about her new workout routine, about feeling healthier and more confident. I'd thought it was great. I'd encouraged her. "Did you sleep with him?" "Eddie, did you sleep with him, Sarah?" Her silence was answer enough. I walked to our bedroom and started pulling clothes out of my dresser. Sarah followed, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "What are you doing?" "Packing." "You don't have to leave. We can work this out. We can go to counseling or—" I turned to face her, and she stepped back at whatever she saw in my expression. "No, Sarah. We can't work this out. You made your choice when you met Austin Reddick. You made your choice when you lied to me about girls' night. You made your choice when you spent the night with him instead of coming home to your husband." "I didn't spend the night with him." "Then where were you? And don't say Jessica's house, because I'm going to call her." Sarah's shoulders sagged in defeat. "I was at his apartment, but we just talked, Eddie. I swear we just talked." I zipped up my duffel bag and headed for the door. "I'll be staying at the Millbrook Inn until I can find a place. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce papers." "Eddie, wait!" But I was already walking out the door, leaving behind 8 years of marriage and the naive belief that love was enough to keep two people together. I didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of the story. The real drama was about to start when I met Austin Reddick face to face, and when Sarah's family got involved. Because in small towns like Millbrook, divorce isn't just between two people. It's a community event. And some members of the community have very strong opinions about who's right and who's wrong. The Millbrook Inn was exactly as depressing as it sounded. $40 a night rooms with thin walls, thinner towels, and the lingering smell of industrial disinfectant mixed with despair. But it was clean, it was quiet, and most importantly, it wasn't the house I'd shared with Sarah. I'd been there 3 days when Sarah's brother Marcus showed up. Marcus Patterson, he'd kept his father's name when Sarah took mine, was everything I wasn't. 6'3", broad shoulders, perfectly styled hair, and a job in digital marketing that seemed to involve a lot of expensive lunches and even more expensive suits. He drove a BMW and lived in a condo downtown that cost more than most people's houses. He also thought I was beneath his sister. I was coming back from a depressing dinner at Denny's when I found him leaning against my truck in the inn's parking lot. Even in the dim streetlight, his disapproval was obvious. "Eddie," he said, pushing off from the truck. "We need to talk." "Marcus, let me guess. Sarah sent you." "Nobody sent me. I came because my sister is falling apart and you're acting like a child." I unlocked my truck and tossed my keys in my pocket. "Your sister is falling apart because she got caught cheating. That's not my fault." "Cheating?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "She went out for coffee with a friend. You're blowing this completely out of proportion." "Coffee?" I turned to face him fully. "Is that what she told you?" "She told me the truth, that you've been neglecting her for months, that you're paranoid and controlling, and that when she tried to make a friend, you went ballistic." The parking lot was empty except for a few other cars belonging to the inn's other temporary residents, people between apartments, traveling salesmen, and now me. The nearest streetlight flickered occasionally, casting shifting shadows across Marcus's face. Did she mention that she lied about where she was going? That she told me she was having girls' night when her friends had all canceled or left early? She said she met up with other people. One person, Marcus. One man, and she spent the night at his apartment. That gave him pause, but only for a moment. Look, maybe she made some mistakes. Maybe she should have been more honest about her plans. But you're her husband, Eddie. You're supposed to fight for your marriage, not run away to a motel the first time things get difficult. The first time? The words came out sharper than I'd intended. "Marcus, this isn't the first time. This is just the first time I caught her." "What's that supposed to mean?" I leaned back against my truck, suddenly exhausted. "It means I've been watching my wife drift away from me for months. Late nights at work that don't show up on her schedule, new clothes she hides the receipts for, a password on her phone that she never had before. I've been making excuses for all of it because I didn't want to believe what was right in front of me." Marcus was quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe I'd gotten through to him. Then he shook his head. "Even if that's true, and I'm not saying it is, but even if it's true, that doesn't mean you give up. That doesn't mean you abandon your wife when she needs you most. She abandoned me first. She made a mistake. She made a choice." The words echoed across the empty parking lot. She chose to lie to me. She chose to spend the evening with another man. She chose to spend the night at his apartment instead of coming home to her husband. Those weren't mistakes, Marcus. Those were choices. Marcus stepped closer, and I could see the family resemblance more clearly. He had Sarah's eyes, the same green that had first attracted me to her 8 years ago. But where Sarah's eyes used to be warm, Marcus's were cold. "You know what I think, Eddie? I think you're looking for an excuse to get out of your marriage. I think you've been unhappy for a while, and this gives you a reason to play the victim instead of admitting that you're just as much to blame for the problems in your relationship." "Is that what you think?" "I think Sarah deserves better than a man who runs away at the first sign of trouble. I think she deserves someone who fights for her instead of packing a bag and checking into a motel." The flickering streetlight cast strange shadows across both our faces as we stared each other down. In the distance, I could hear traffic from the main road, the sound of people going about their normal lives while mine fell apart. Someone like Austin Reddick? I asked quietly. Marcus's expression shifted slightly. I don't know anything about that guy. But you know about him. Sarah mentioned him, said he was a friend who was helping her through a difficult time. A difficult time that I apparently caused. Look, Eddie. No, you look. I pushed off from my truck and took a step toward him. I spent 8 years trying to make your sister happy. I bought the house she wanted, even though it stretched our budget. I took the job she thought was more respectable, even though I loved construction work. I put up with her complaints about my friends, my hobbies, my family. I changed everything about myself that she didn't like, and it still wasn't enough. I'm not finished. My voice was getting louder, but I didn't care. For the past year, I've watched her become more and more distant, more critical, more dissatisfied with everything about our life together. And instead of talking to me about it, instead of trying to work on our problems together, she went looking for someone else. Marcus was quiet now, his jaw clenched. So don't come here and tell me I should fight for my marriage, I continued. Don't tell me I should fight for someone who's already decided I'm not worth fighting for. And don't tell me I'm the one who gave up first, because we both know that's not true. The silence stretched between us. In the distance, a car door slammed and someone laughed. Normal sounds from a normal evening in a normal life. She loves you, Marcus said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. No, she doesn't. Maybe she did once, but not anymore. And you know what? I'm starting to realize that maybe I don't love her anymore either. Maybe I just love the memory of who she used to be. Marcus looked away, and for a moment I thought I saw doubt creep into his expression. Then he straightened up, the family loyalty kicking back in. This is temporary, he said. Whatever's going on between you two, it's temporary. Sarah's going through something right now, but it'll pass. And when it does, you'll regret giving up on your marriage. Maybe, but I'll regret staying in a marriage with someone who doesn't want to be there even more. Marcus walked back to his BMW without another word. I watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing into the night, and realized that I'd just lost more than my wife. I'd lost her entire family, all the relationships and connections that had been part of my life for 8 years. But as I walked back to my depressing motel room, I also realized something else. I felt lighter than I had in months. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking on eggshells, wasn't wondering what I'd done wrong or how I could fix it. I was free. The question was, what was I going to do with that freedom? The next morning, I drove to Paulson's Diner for breakfast and ran into my old friend Mike Rodriguez. Mike and I had worked construction together for 5 years before I'd taken the building inspector job. We'd stayed close, even after I'd changed careers, though Sarah had never liked him much. Eddie? Mike stood up from his booth and clapped me on the shoulder. Heard you were staying at the inn. Everything okay? I slid into the booth across from him and ordered coffee from the waitress. Sarah and I are getting divorced. Mike's expression shifted from friendly concern to something more serious. Damn, man, I'm sorry. What happened? I gave him the abbreviated version, the lies about girls' night, the mystery man, the night spent at Austin's apartment. Mike listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each detail. Austin Reddick, he said when I finished. I know that name. Yeah? He's been sniffing around a few married women in town. My buddy Dave's wife mentioned him. Said he joined her yoga class and started asking her out for coffee to discuss fitness goals. Mike made air quotes around the last part. Dave had to have a conversation with him. What kind of conversation? The kind that convinced Austin to find a different yoga class. I sipped my coffee and thought about this. So he's got a pattern. Seems like it. Guy's got a reputation as a home wrecker, targets women who are going through rough patches in their marriages. The waitress brought my eggs and bacon. I pushed them around on the plate, not really hungry anymore. The thing is, I said, I don't think Sarah sees it that way. I think she genuinely believes he's just a friend who understands her. They always do, Mike said grimly. That's how guys like Austin operate. They don't come on strong. They listen. They sympathize. They make the woman feel like the victim in her own marriage. Her brother came to see me last night. Told me I should fight for my marriage. What did you tell him? That Sarah made her choice when she decided to lie to me and spend the night with another man. Mike nodded approvingly. Good. Don't let them make you the bad guy in this, Eddie. You didn't do anything wrong. But even as he said it, I wondered if that was true. Had I been a good husband? Had I been attentive enough, romantic enough, supportive enough? Sarah's words from our fight kept echoing in my head. You haven't touched me in months. You haven't taken me anywhere or done anything exciting in years. You're thinking too much, Mike said, reading my expression. I can see it on your face. Stop second-guessing yourself. Maybe she's right, though. Maybe I did get complacent. Maybe I stopped trying. Eddie, listen to me. Marriage is a two-way street. If Sarah was unhappy, she should have talked to you about it. She should have suggested counseling or date nights or whatever. What she shouldn't have done is go looking for attention from other men. I knew he was right, but it didn't make me feel any better. What are you going to do now? Mike asked. Find a lawyer, I guess. Start the divorce process. What about work? You coming back anytime soon? I'd been wondering the same thing. Taking sick days indefinitely wasn't a long-term solution, but I wasn't sure I could concentrate on building inspections while my personal life was imploding. Maybe next week. I need to get my head straight first. Mike finished his coffee and stood up. You need anything? A place to stay? Someone to talk to? Help moving your stuff? You call me, okay? Don't try to handle all this alone. After he left, I sat in the diner for another hour, drinking coffee and trying to figure out my next move. I needed a lawyer, but I also needed to understand what I was dealing with. How long had Sarah been seeing Austin? Was it just emotional, or had they slept together? Were there others before him? I decided to start with what I could verify. Sarah and I had a joint cell phone plan, and I still had access to the account online. I drove back to the inn, opened my laptop, and logged into Verizon's website. The call logs told a story I didn't want to read. For the past 6 weeks, Sarah had been texting and calling a number I didn't recognize dozens of times per day. The pattern was clear. Short calls during work hours, longer calls in the evenings when I thought she was watching TV or reading. Late-night texts that continued well past midnight. I reverse-searched the number online. Austin Reddick, just as I'd suspected. But what really gut-punched me was the timing. The first call to Austin's number was dated 7 weeks ago, the same day Sarah and I had our biggest fight in months. I'd been frustrated about money, about the endless kitchen renovation, about feeling like we were roommates instead of husband and wife. I'd said some things I regretted, and she'd said some things that cut deep. The next day, she'd joined the gym. The day after that, she'd called Austin for the first time. I closed the laptop and stared at the motel room's water-stained ceiling. Mike was right that Sarah should have talked to me about her unhappiness instead of seeking comfort elsewhere. But I was also starting to realize that I'd been checked out of our marriage long before she'd started checking out. The question was, did that make me partially responsible for what happened? Or was I just making excuses for her betrayal? My phone buzzed with a text message. Sarah. Eddie, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. Can you meet me for coffee? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. No coffee. If you want to talk, we can meet at the house with lawyers present. Her response came back immediately. You're being ridiculous. I'm your wife, not your enemy. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on, you stopped being my wife when you started being Austin's girlfriend. This time, her response took longer. I'm not his girlfriend, and I'm still your wife whether you like it or not. Not for long. I turned off my phone after that. I had research to do, and I couldn't afford to be distracted by Sarah's attempts at damage control. Because if Austin Reddick really was targeting married women in our small town, then Sarah wasn't his first victim. And if she wasn't his first victim, then maybe I could find other people who'd been through what I was going through. Maybe I could find allies. Finding Austin's previous targets turned out to be easier than I'd expected. Small towns are like that. Everyone knows everyone's business, and secrets have a way of surfacing when you know where to look. I started with Mike's friend Dave, the one whose wife had been approached by Austin at yoga class. Dave worked at the auto parts store downtown, and I found him there during his lunch break. "Mike told me you might want to talk," Dave said when I explained why I was there. "Sorry about your situation, man. This Austin guy is a real piece of work." "What exactly happened with your wife?" Dave leaned against the counter and shook his head. "Linda started taking yoga classes about 3 months ago. Said she needed to de-stress, get in shape, all that. At first it was great. She seemed happier, more confident. Then she started mentioning this instructor who was so supportive and really understood her goals." "Austin?" "Yeah. Though she didn't tell me his name at first. Just kept talking about how nice it was to have someone who listened to her, who took her seriously. Started staying after class to discuss her progress. Then he suggested they meet for coffee to talk about nutrition." The parallels to Sarah's story were uncomfortable. "Did she go?" "Once. She came home acting all secretive and guilty, but also kind of excited, like she had a secret that made her feel special." Dave's jaw tightened. "That's when I knew something was wrong." "What did you do?" "I asked her straight out if she was interested in this guy. She got defensive, said I was being jealous and controlling, said he was just a friend who cared about her well-being." "Sounds familiar." So I did some research, asked around. Turns out Austin had pulled the same routine with at least 2 other women in town. Always the same pattern: befriend them, make them feel special and understood, then gradually escalate the relationship. "What happened to the other women?" Dave's expression darkened. "One of them left her husband. Janet Morrison. You might know her. She works at the bank. She was married to Tom Morrison for 15 years, 2 kids. Austin convinced her that Tom didn't appreciate her, that she deserved better. She filed for divorce last month." I felt a chill run down my spine. "And the other woman?" "Amy Chen. She's a teacher at the elementary school. Her husband found out about the affair before it went too far, but it nearly destroyed their marriage. They're in counseling now, trying to work it out." Jesus. "Yeah. So when Linda started getting secretive about her yoga instructor, I knew I had to act fast. I went to the studio and had a conversation with Austin." "What kind of conversation?" Dave smiled grimly. "The kind where I explained that my wife was off limits and that if he continued pursuing married women in this town, word was going to get around about his methods. Small towns don't like home wreckers, Eddie. Bad for business." "Did it work?" "Linda stopped going to that yoga studio, found a different one across town with a female instructor. We had some long talks about boundaries and what she was really looking for that she felt like she wasn't getting at home." Dave paused. "It wasn't easy, but we worked through it." I left the auto parts store with a lot to think about. Austin wasn't just some guy who'd happened to meet Sarah at the gym. He was a predator who systematically targeted married women, identified their vulnerabilities, and exploited them. But I also couldn't ignore the fact that his tactics only worked on women who were already unhappy.
Smile, because this is the last good day of your life.
Cute. Remember that night? Your office party?
Daniel, take Sarah home. Something urgent came up.
I'm pregnant. Who do you think the father is?
Happy in their marriages. Sarah, Linda, Janet, Amy, they'd all been vulnerable to Austin's approach because something was missing in their relationships. That afternoon, I drove to the bank to see if I could talk to Janet Morrison. I'd known her peripherally for years. She'd handled my business account when I was doing construction work. I found her at the customer service desk, looking tired and older than I remembered. When she saw me approaching, her face flushed red. "Eddie," she said quietly, "I heard about you and Sarah. I'm sorry. Can we talk? Maybe grab coffee after work?" She glanced around the bank, clearly uncomfortable. "I don't think that's a good idea. People are already talking about me enough." "Janet, I'm not here to judge you. I just want to understand what happened, how Austin operates." Her expression softened slightly. "You really want to know?" "I need to know." She looked around again, then leaned closer. "Meet me at the Starbucks on Route 9 at 5:30, the one by the highway where nobody from town goes." At 5:30, I was sitting in a corner booth at Starbucks when Janet walked in. She'd changed out of her bank uniform into jeans and a sweater, but she still looked nervous. "I can't believe I'm doing this," she said as she sat down across from me. "Just tell me what happened. From the beginning." Janet sipped her latte and stared out the window at the traffic on Route 9. "Tom and I had been having problems for about a year. Nothing dramatic, just distance. He was working longer hours at his accounting firm. I was busy with the kids and my job. We'd become roommates instead of husband and wife." The words hit too close to home. "I joined the gym to lose weight, get back in shape, maybe feel better about myself. Austin was my personal trainer. At first, it was just professional. He designed workout routines, gave me nutrition advice, but he also listened, really listened." "About what?" "Everything. My frustrations with Tom, my feelings of being taken for granted, my dreams that I'd given up when I got married and had kids. Austin made me feel like my feelings mattered, like I was interesting and worth paying attention to." "When did it become more than that?" Janet's cheeks reddened. "He started texting me motivational messages. Then they became more personal, asking about my day, remembering things I'd told him. Then he suggested we meet for coffee to discuss my goals. And you went." "I went. And it felt amazing, Eddie. For 2 hours I sat across from a handsome, attentive man who hung on my every word. He made me feel beautiful and desirable and interesting, all the things I hadn't felt in years. Did Tom know?" I told myself it was innocent, just friendship. Austin understood that I was married, that I wasn't looking for anything serious. He said he just wanted to help me rediscover my confidence. But it escalated. Janet nodded miserably. Slowly, more coffee dates, then lunch, then he started talking about how I deserved better, how Tom didn't appreciate what he had. He never directly told me to leave my husband, but he planted seeds, made me question everything about my marriage. "When did you sleep with him?" The question was blunt, but I needed to know how far Sarah had gone. 6 weeks after our first coffee date. I told myself it was just physical, just something I needed to feel alive again. But Austin made it seem like more than that, like we had a real connection. How long did the affair last? 3 months. Tom found out when he saw texts on my phone. We had a huge fight, and I told him I wanted a divorce. I was convinced that Austin and I had something real, something worth breaking up my family for. What changed your mind? Janet's laugh was bitter. Austin did. As soon as I filed for divorce, as soon as it became real instead of just an exciting secret, he started pulling back. said he needed space to figure out what he wanted. Then I found out he was already pursuing someone else, another married woman from his yoga class. Sarah. I don't know if it was Sarah specifically, but yes, someone new. That's when I realized that I wasn't special to him. I was just another conquest, another married woman he could manipulate and discard. Did you try to reconcile with Tom? I tried, but the damage was done. He can't trust me anymore, and honestly, I can't blame him. I threw away 15 years of marriage for a fantasy. We sat in silence for a moment, watching cars pass by on the highway. Normal people living normal lives, not sitting in chain coffee shops discussing the wreckage of their marriages. Eddie, Janet said finally, I know you probably think I'm a terrible person, and maybe I am, but I want you to know that Sarah isn't a bad person either. Austin is very good at what he does. He finds women who are vulnerable and lonely, and he makes them believe that their marriages are the problem. Are they, though? The problem, I mean? Janet considered this. In my case, yes and no. Tom and I had real issues that we should have addressed in counseling. But instead of working on them together, I let Austin convince me that the solution was to blow up my entire life. Do you regret it? Every day. Not just losing Tom and hurting my kids, but believing Austin's lies about what we had. I traded a real marriage with real problems for a fantasy that was never going to last. I thanked Janet for her honesty and drove back to the motel. Her story had given me insight into Austin's methods, but it had also forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about my own marriage. Sarah and I had real problems that we'd never addressed. We'd grown apart, become complacent, stopped communicating effectively. In that sense, we were both responsible for the distance between us. But Sarah had chosen to deal with those problems by seeking validation from another man instead of working on our relationship together. And that choice, that betrayal, was something I wasn't sure I could forgive. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I'd been avoiding Sarah's calls and texts for a week when she showed up at the motel. I was coming back from another depressing dinner at Denny's when I found her sitting on the hood of my truck, arms crossed, looking furious. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "I told you, if you want to talk, we can do it through lawyers." "Eddie, stop being ridiculous. I'm still your wife." "Are you?" "Because wives don't usually spend the night at other men's apartments." Sarah slid off my truck and stepped closer. Even angry and disheveled, she was beautiful. That had always been part of the problem. Sarah's looks had gotten her out of trouble her whole life, and she'd learned to use them as a weapon. "Nothing happened that night," she said. "We talked. That's all." "About what?" "About things. About how unhappy I've been. About how disconnected we've become." "So, you talked to Austin about our marriage problems instead of talking to me?" "I tried talking to you, but every time I brought up anything serious, you'd change the subject or make a joke or find some project to work on." There was enough truth in that accusation to sting. I had been avoiding difficult conversations with Sarah for months, maybe longer. "So you decided to find someone who would listen?" "I decided to find a friend who understood what I was going through. A friend who's been targeting married women all over town." Sarah's expression faltered slightly. "What are you talking about?" "Austin Reddick has a pattern, Sarah. He goes after married women who are having problems, makes them feel special and understood, convinces them that their husbands don't appreciate them. Then he sleeps with them and moves on to the next target." That's not what this is. "Isn't it? Ask Janet Morrison. Ask Amy Chen. Ask Linda Rodriguez." The color drained from Sarah's face. "You've been talking to other women about my personal business?" "I've been talking to Austin's other victims about his methods." "I'm not a victim, Eddie. And Austin isn't some predator. He's a good man who's been there for me when my own husband couldn't be bothered." "When did you sleep with him?" The question hung in the air between us. Sarah's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. When, Sarah? It wasn't like that. Answer the question. 2 weeks ago, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. The words hit me like a physical blow. 2 weeks ago, we'd still been living together. We'd still been sharing a bed, sharing meals, going through the motions of being married. Where? Eddie, please. Where did you fuck him, Sarah? She flinched at the crude language. At his apartment. After the gym. What did you tell me that night? I don't remember. You said you were working late. You came home at 11 o'clock and told me you'd been in budget meetings until 10:30. Sarah looked away, unable to meet my eyes. So you lied to me, went to his apartment, slept with him, then came home and got into bed next to me like nothing had happened. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. Once? Another long pause. No. How many times, Sarah? Does it matter? Yes, it fucking matters. 3 times, she said, tears starting to flow. 3 times over 2 weeks. I leaned back against my truck, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. 3 times. While we were still living together, still married, still pretending to work on our relationship. And you never thought to tell me? Never thought that maybe I deserved to know that my wife was sleeping with another man? I was going to tell you. I was trying to figure out how to handle the situation. What situation? You mean your affair? It's not an affair. It's complicated. No, Sarah, it's simple. You're married to me and you're fucking someone else. That's called adultery, and it's grounds for divorce in the state of Maine. Sarah was crying harder now, mascara running down her cheeks. Eddie, please. I know I made mistakes, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can't do anything. You destroyed our marriage when you decided that Austin Reddick was more important than your wedding vows. He's not more important. You are. You're my husband. Then why did you choose him over me? I didn't choose him over you. Yes, you did. Every time you lied about where you were going. Every time you texted him instead of talking to me. Every time you went to his bed instead of working on our problems together. You chose him. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup further. What do you want me to do, Eddie? I can't change what happened. I can't take it back. I want you to admit what you did. I want you to stop making excuses and take responsibility for your choices. Fine, I had an affair. I lied to you. I hurt you. I'm sorry. Now what? Now nothing. It's too late for apologies. It's not too late. We've been together for 8 years, Eddie. That has to count for something. It did count for something. Until you threw it away for a personal trainer who's probably already moved on to his next target. Sarah's face went pale. What do you mean? I mean, Austin Reddick doesn't do relationships, Sarah. He does conquests. And now that he's conquered you, he's probably looking for someone new. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? When's the last time you heard from him? Sarah's silence was telling. Let me guess, I continued. He's been distant lately, not returning your calls as quickly, making excuses about why he can't see you. He's just busy with work. He's busy with his next victim, just like he was busy with you when he was getting bored with Janet Morrison. You're lying. Am I? Why don't you call him right now? See if he's free to talk. Sarah pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She dialed Austin's number and put the phone to her ear. I could hear it ring once, twice, 3 times before going to voicemail. Austin, it's me, she said into the phone. Can you call me back? I really need to talk to you. She hung up and looked at me defiantly. He's probably at the gym. It's 9 o'clock at night, Sarah. The gym closed an hour ago. We stood there in the motel parking lot. 2 people who'd once loved each other enough to promise forever, now strangers separated by lies and betrayal and the wreckage of broken trust. I should go, Sarah said finally. Yeah, you should. She walked to her car, then turned back. Eddie, I know you hate me right now, and I know I deserve it, but I want you to know that I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me, Sarah. And the worst part is, you kept hurting me even after you knew what you were doing was wrong. She got in her car and drove away, leaving me alone in the parking lot with the smell of exhaust and the sound of traffic from the highway. I went back to my depressing motel room and sat on the bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Tomorrow, I would call a lawyer and start the divorce process. I would figure out how to divide our assets, our debts, our shared life. But tonight, I just sat there and mourned the end of my marriage and the death of the future I'd thought we were building together. It was over. Finally, officially, irreversibly over. The only question now was what came next. The law office of Patricia Hendricks was located in a converted Victorian house on Elm Street, complete with creaky floors and the smell of old wood and coffee. Patricia herself was in her 50s, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, with a reputation for being tough but fair. "So," she said, reviewing the notes I'd given her, "your wife had an affair, lied about it repeatedly, and is now claiming it was just a friendship that got out of hand. That's about the size of it. And you have evidence of the affair?" I handed her a folder containing printouts of the phone records, screenshots of Sarah's Instagram posts, and a written statement from Jim Murphy about seeing Sarah leave the bar with Austin. Patricia flipped through the documents, nodding occasionally. "This is good. Maine is a no-fault divorce state, which means the affair itself won't affect the division of assets, but it can impact alimony considerations." "What does that mean?" "It means Sarah won't be able to claim spousal support based on your supposed misconduct, since she's the one who violated the marriage contract." "Good. Now, let's talk about assets. You own a house together?" "Yes. We bought it 3 years ago. Still owe about $60,000 on the mortgage." "Any other major assets? Retirement accounts, vehicles, joint bank accounts?" I gave her the rundown of our finances. It wasn't complicated. We were solidly middle-class people with middle-class debts and assets. "No children?" "No children." That simplifies things considerably. Now, what are your goals for this divorce? What outcome are you hoping for? I thought about it. I want a clean break. I don't want alimony and I don't want to pay alimony. I want to split everything 50-50 and walk away. That's reasonable. What about the house? She can have it if she can afford the mortgage payments. If not, we'll sell it and split the proceeds. Patricia made notes on her legal pad. I'll draft the initial paperwork and serve her within the week. Maine has a 60-day waiting period for uncontested divorces, longer if she decides to fight it. Will she fight it? Hard to say. People do irrational things when their marriages end. But based on what you've told me, she doesn't have much ground to stand on. I left Patricia's office feeling like I'd taken the first concrete step toward ending my marriage. It was both liberating and terrifying. That afternoon, I drove to the gym where Austin worked. FitLife was a new facility in a strip mall, all gleaming equipment and motivational posters. Through the glass windows, I could see people running on treadmills and lifting weights, pursuing their fitness goals with admirable dedication. I found Austin in the free weights section, spotting a middle-aged man on the bench press. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, muscular, with the kind of artificially white smile that suggested expensive dental work. He wore a tight-fitting FitLife polo shirt and shorts that showed off his gym-sculpted physique. I waited until he finished with his client, then approached. "Austin Reddick?" He turned, and I could see him sizing me up, probably wondering if I was a potential client or a potential problem. "That's me. Can I help you?" "I'm Eddie Harlow, Sarah's husband." His expression shifted immediately. The friendly salesman mask slipped, replaced by something warier. "Oh, right. Sarah mentioned you." "I'm sure she did. Can we talk?" Austin glanced around the gym, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm working right now. This won't take long. He led me to a quieter corner near the juice bar, away from the main workout area. Look, he said before I could speak. I know this is awkward, but Sarah and I are just friends. Whatever she told you about us. She told me you've been sleeping together for 2 weeks. Austin's face went red. That's not how I would characterize our relationship. How would you characterize it? Sarah's going through a difficult time in her marriage. I've been providing emotional support. Is that what you call it? I call it being a good friend to someone who needs one. I studied his face, looking for signs of guilt or remorse or even basic human decency. What I saw instead was calculation. He was trying to figure out what I knew and how much trouble he was in. Austin, I'm going to be very clear about something. My marriage to Sarah is over. I'm filing for divorce and I don't want her back, so you don't have to worry about me trying to win her away from you. Relief flickered across his features. But, I continued, I want you to understand something about the woman you've been sleeping with. Sarah is not going to leave her marriage for you. She's not going to run away with you into the sunset. She's using you the same way you've been using her. I don't know what you mean. I mean, Sarah likes the attention you give her, and she likes the excitement of sneaking around, but when push comes to shove, she's going to choose security over passion. She always does. Austin's jaw tightened. You don't know Sarah as well as you think you do. I've been married to her for 8 years. I know exactly who she is. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you never really saw her. Maybe. But I see you clearly enough. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know about Janet Morrison, and Amy Chen, and Linda Rodriguez. You have a pattern, Austin. You target married women who are having problems, you make them feel special, you sleep with them, and then you move on. Austin's face had gone from red to pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. The question is, does Sarah know she's just the latest in a long line of conquests? Sarah and I have something real. Do you? When's the last time you talked to her? Austin's silence was answer enough. Let me guess, I said. She's been calling and texting more frequently lately, getting clingy, wanting to know where the relationship is going, and you've been pulling back, making excuses, keeping your distance. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. Because now that Sarah's marriage is ending, now that she's available, you're not interested anymore. The thrill is gone. Austin looked around the gym again, clearly wanting this conversation to end. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Sarah is going to keep calling you, and you're going to keep avoiding her calls. Eventually, she's going to show up here or at your apartment, demanding to know why you're not returning her messages, and you're going to have to tell her the truth, that you were never serious about her, that she was just a way to pass the time. You're wrong about me. Am I? Prove it. Call Sarah right now and tell her you love her. Tell her you want to be with her. Austin's hand moved toward his phone, then stopped. That's what I thought, I said. You know what the funny thing is, Austin. Sarah thinks she chose you over me. But the truth is, she chose a fantasy over reality, and now she's going to end up with neither. I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back. One more thing. This is a small town and word gets around fast. Your reputation as a homewrecker is already spreading. I'd suggest finding a new line of work, maybe in a different town, because married women are going to start avoiding you, and their husbands are going to start watching you very carefully. I left Austin standing there in his gleaming gym, surrounded by all the trappings of success and health, looking like a man who just realized his world was about to collapse. Driving back to the motel, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks: satisfaction. Not happiness exactly, but a sense that I'd finally taken control of my situation instead of just reacting to it. Sarah had made her choice when she decided to have an affair. Austin had made his choice when he decided to target married women. Now, they were both going to live with the consequences of those choices. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I was looking forward to what came next. The divorce papers were served to Sarah on a Tuesday morning at her workplace. I know this because Patricia called me at 10:15 a.m. to confirm that the process server had found her at the hospital and handed over the documents. How did she react? I asked. According to the server, she seemed shocked, started crying and asking if there was some mistake. No mistake. She has 30 days to respond. If she doesn't contest it, we can proceed with an uncontested divorce. And if she does contest it, then we go to court and let a judge decide. But honestly, Eddie, based on the evidence you've provided, she doesn't have much of a case. That evening, my phone started ringing. Sarah calling over and over. I let it go to voicemail every time. When I finally listened to the messages, they told a story of escalating desperation. Eddie, please call me back. We need to talk about these papers. I can't believe you actually filed for divorce without even trying to work things out. This is crazy, Eddie. We can fix this. Please just call me. I went to the motel, but you weren't there. Where are you staying? The last message was different. Sarah's voice was flat, defeated. Austin won't return my calls. I think you were right about him. Please, Eddie. I know I messed up, but I don't want to lose everything. Call me. I didn't call her back. Instead, I drove to Murphy's Pub, where I found Mike Rodriguez at his usual spot at the bar, nursing a beer and watching the Red Sox game on the mounted TV. Eddie, he called out when he saw me. Heard you served Sarah with papers today. How you holding up? Better than expected, actually. Jim Murphy appeared behind the bar, wiping down glasses. Heard about your situation, Eddie? Sorry it came to this. Thanks, Jim. Can I get a bourbon? Make it a double. Jim poured the drink and slid it across the bar. You know, I've been thinking about what we talked about before, about that Austin character. Yeah? Word's getting around about him. Couple other guys have come in asking about their wives and this personal trainer. Seems like he's made quite an impression on the married ladies in town. Mike turned from the TV. What kind of impression? The kind that breaks up marriages, Jim said grimly. Tom Morrison was in here last week, drowning his sorrows. Said his wife Janet left him for some fitness instructor. That's Austin, I confirmed. Same guy who's been sleeping with Sarah. Bastard's got a real racket going, Mike said. Targets unhappy wives, makes them feel special, breaks up their marriages. Not anymore, I said, taking a sip of bourbon. I had a conversation with him yesterday. Made it clear that his reputation is catching up with him. Good, Jim said. Guys like that give the rest of us a bad name. We drank in companionable silence for a while, watching the game and not talking about cheating wives or broken marriages. It felt normal, comfortable, the first time I'd felt truly relaxed in weeks. Around 9 o'clock, the door opened and Sarah walked in. The entire bar went quiet. In a small town, everyone knows when someone's marriage is falling apart, and Sarah's presence at Murphy's Pub, Eddie's hangout, was either very brave or very stupid. She spotted me at the bar and walked over, ignoring the stares from the other patrons. Eddie, we need to talk. No, we don't. Please, just 5 minutes. Mike and Jim exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the domestic drama playing out in their sanctuary. You want to talk? I said, turning to face her fully. Fine, let's talk. Right here, right now, in front of everyone. Sarah looked around the bar, realizing that our conversation was about to become public entertainment. Can we go somewhere private? No. You want to talk? We talk here. What did you want to say? Sarah's face was red with embarrassment, but she pressed on. I want to apologize for everything, for lying to you, for the affair, for hurting you. I made terrible mistakes, and I'm sorry. Okay. Apology noted. Anything else? I want to try to work things out. I want to go to counseling, figure out what went wrong, fix our marriage. The bar was completely silent now. Even the TV seemed muted compared to the tension in the room. What about Austin? I asked. Sarah's voice dropped to almost a whisper. It's over with Austin. Did you break up with him or did he break up with you? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Because if he dumped you, then you're not here because you realized you made a mistake. You're here because your backup plan fell through. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. Isn't it? 3 weeks ago, you were ready to throw away our marriage for Austin Reddick. You told me I was boring, that I didn't appreciate you, that you felt suffocated. What's changed? I realized I was wrong. I realized that what Austin and I had wasn't real. No, Sarah. You realized that Austin was never serious about you. You realized that he was using you the same way he used Janet Morrison and Amy Chen and God knows how many other married women in this town. The tears were flowing freely now. Please, Eddie. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. I looked at her, really looked at her. And for a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her 8 years ago. She'd been beautiful and ambitious and full of dreams about the future we'd build together. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone who'd lied to me for weeks, betrayed our marriage vows, and only wanted me back because her affair had ended badly. No, I said quietly. No, Sarah. I'm not giving you another chance. I'm not going to counseling with you. I'm not going to pretend that what you did can be forgiven or forgotten. But we can work through this. Other couples have survived affairs. Other couples, maybe. Not us. Why not? I took a long sip of bourbon, gathering my thoughts. The entire bar was listening, but I didn't care anymore. This conversation needed to happen, and if it happened in public, so be it. Because you didn't just have an affair, Sarah. You conducted a campaign of deception against me. For weeks, you looked me in the eye and lied about where you were going, who you were with, what you were doing. You came home from Austin's bed and got into our bed like nothing had happened. I know, and I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry Austin turned out to be exactly what I said he was. But you're not sorry you had the affair, because if Austin had been serious about you, you'd be with him right now, instead of begging me to take you back. Sarah wiped her eyes with a napkin Jim had quietly placed in front of her. That's not true. Yes, it is, and deep down, you know it. So that's it? 8 years of marriage, and you're just going to throw it away? I'm not throwing it away, Sarah. You already did that when you decided Austin Reddick was more important than your wedding vows. Sarah stood up from the bar stool, her face a mixture of hurt and anger. Fine. If that's how you want it, then fine. But don't expect me to make this divorce easy for you. I wouldn't dream of it. She walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. You're going to regret this, Eddie. You're going to realize what you lost, and by then it'll be too late. Maybe, but I'll regret staying with someone who betrayed me even more. After she left, the bar slowly returned to normal. Conversations resumed, the TV volume went back up, and life went on. Mike clapped me on the shoulder. That couldn't have been easy. No, it wasn't, but it needed to happen. Jim refilled my glass without being asked. You did the right thing, Eddie. Woman like that, she'd just do it again. I nodded, though part of me wondered if I was making a mistake. 8 years was a long time to throw away. But then I remembered the lies, the deception, the nights Sarah had come home from Austin's apartment and pretended everything was normal. Some mistakes you can forgive, some betrayals you can overcome, but some wounds are too deep to heal, and some trust, once broken, can never be repaired. Sarah had made her choice weeks ago when she started her affair with Austin. Tonight, I'd finally made mine. The divorce would proceed, and our marriage would end, and we'd both have to figure out how to build new lives from the wreckage of the old one. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just surviving, and that was enough. 2 weeks later, Sarah lawyered up and filed a counterpetition, claiming I was emotionally abusive and owed her alimony and more assets. Patricia called Friday, Sarah says I controlled her, isolated her, and she had to look elsewhere. I told Patricia it was lies. She said we'd prove it with witnesses. Mike Rodriguez, Jim Murphy, co-workers, maybe Sarah's friends, and warned her attorney plays hardball. That night at the diner, Austin Reddick slid into my booth, haggard. Sarah was harassing him, and he admitted she was also telling people I was abusive. He wasn't confessing out of kindness. He feared being blamed as a manipulator in court. I told him I wanted one thing: the truth. Either he testified about pursuing a married woman and treating it like a thrill, or I'd expose his pattern to everyone in town. He caved, admitting he was never serious, and the excitement died once she was available. 3 days later, Patricia said Austin's deposition detonated Sarah's narrative. Settlement followed, 50-50, no alimony, clean break. 6 months later, I bought a quiet house, Austin left town, and I drank beer with friends, relieved, finally looking forward to tomorrow without lies or late-night phone calls from her.